the code has been around for several decades, but it has evolved a lot. It covers all professional accountants, both both accountants in business and, of course, accountants in public practice. And specifically, it is a code of ethics for accountants, including independence requirements for auditors. So these are broadly the items that the code covers, has a scope over. Now, the code has several different parts. One part, which is probably the cornerstone of the code, is the one that includes the fundamental principles and the conceptual framework. Now, that's a part of the code that must become familiar to all accountants, irrespective of their role, the fundamental principles and the conceptual framework. And then there are parts that refer to accountants in business, then accountants in public practice, and then specifically independence requirements for audit. The code now, in its present form, also has a very useful and very extensive glossary of terms, which is very useful for anybody who uses it, with definitions. And as I said before, it is something that is so well structured that it can be navigated relatively easily. Now, in the past, the code has been, of course, quite popular for adoption in many jurisdictions. Just before we issued the restructured and revised code, there were 120 jurisdictions in the world, a few more, adopting the code. The code has been adopted either as is or as a basis for codes that various jurisdictions have added on to, depending on their specific circumstances. Now, when we issued the restructured code in 2018, we undertook a very large effort of outreach that covered all continents except Antarctica. And our effort was to make people aware that the new restructured code should be adopted rapidly, and people should adjust rapidly to this new code. This went both to jurisdictions that had adopted earlier versions and to those that had not adopted the code at all. So besides outreach and personal visits of me and members and staff to many places, we have engaged in wide activity with webinars, with other forms of electronic communication of the code. Our webpage has become very enriched. So we are now at a position where more than 80 jurisdictions have adopted or are in the process of adopting the new code, the restructured code. We're very encouraged by this process because, over these 2 years, and a year and a half actually, this has been a very good and strong pace of adoption. So we're very optimistic about that.
Stavros discusses the responses received in terms of the implementation of the revised code.
In terms of implementation, we are, of course, trying to make available as many facilities as we can to facilitate implementation. And again, this is an area where we are cooperating now, and we're hoping to expand our cooperation with the International Federation of Accountants, which can do a lot through its member bodies, the accounting organizations around the world, to encourage and assist implementation.
Dr. Stavros Thomadakis discusses some of the tools and resources available to help promote awareness, education, and assistance on the implementation of the code.
That's a very important question, because you may have a very good code, but clearly you need to have tools that facilitate awareness education, and help offer assistance for implementation. So we have enriched very much our website, which includes a lot of current information, a lot of materials relevant to various parts of the code, and of course, a lot of information on the current projects that we are pursuing, so that people know not just what is in the code as it stands, but what is coming in terms of change. We have a series of staff question and answers, frequently asked questions and answers to them, also to be found in our website. And of course, the crowning tool that we have is our eCode, an electronic code, which is not just an electronic rendition of the code, but it has some intelligent facilities that people can use to navigate, to search, to cut and paste, to compare, and to obtain links to a lot of material that is not in the code itself, non-authoritative material, as for example, the basis for conclusions that our board issues every time that we publish a new standard. So our eCode is essentially it is like an application. I have it on my smartphone that you can use very easily. We have been encouraging and advertising our eCode. It's free and it can be used by everybody. And one important thing regarding the code I want to note is that we are also making the platform of the eCode available to other national standard setters so that they can recreate the eCode in other languages. Because of course our eCode is in English right now. So I believe that this is a very powerful tool, and it has been proven to be very popular by users. And it goes quite a long way, I believe, in raising awareness of the new revised and restructured code.